Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of In the Workplace. My name is Patrick Thelen, and I'm the Chief Research Editor at the Institute for Public Relations Organizational Communication Research Center. With me today is Dr. Minjeong Kang, an Associate Professor at Indiana University Bloomington's Media School, who recently authored a very interesting article on the impact that employees' dissenting voices through testimonials have on consumers' perceptions of corporate hypocrisy and overall reputation. Minjeong, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here today. Minjeong, many researchers have studied the impact of positive employee communication behaviors on organizational outcomes. For example, many studies have looked at how employee ambassadors can positively impact organizations. Your study examined the opposite. In other words, your research focused on how employees' negative testimonials about their employers impact the organization's reputation. Now, before jumping into the results of your research, could you briefly explain the method of your study and what type of negative employee testimonials you were looking at?
Yeah, I relied on experimental design with a control group to test the causal effect of the negative employee testimonials on public's perception of organizational hypocrisy and reputational damage. The method in the paper seems a little bit complicated, but it's actually pretty straightforward. First, I created two short videos, one containing negative testimonials by former and current employees of the case company regarding toxic workplace allegations. And these testimonials were drawn from actual 2015 New York Times article and broadcast news clips on YouTube. And the other video contained a commercial of unrelated company as the control group material. There were about 400 people who participated in the experiments, and they were randomly split into two groups, one to watch the negative employee testimonials and the other the unrelated commercial. And before they were shown the video, they were asked to answer questions about the existing attitudes, preferences, shopping habits, along with assessments of the company's reputation. It was because I actually used the existing company for material. And after showing the video, they were asked to answer questions, and finally were asked to assess the reputation using the same question that they used pre-video to compare the assessment before watching the video.
Got it. Perfect. Now, very quickly, Minjeong, these negative testimonials you were talking about, what specifically were the employees and former employees saying? Were they talking about the products and services, or were they talking about just their negative experiences with their employers?
Yeah, this company, the employees were talking about toxic workplace allegations, and one of the quotes that I can remember is that I was expected to work like a robot, and there was no sympathy from the management when they had to deal with like work-life conflicts, like a personal situation. So it was really strictly about the workplace issues and not about products or services.
Got it. Perfect. Now, in terms of your findings, one of your findings suggests that the participants' exposure to employees' negative testimonials of the working conditions within the organization increased their perceptions of organizational hypocrisy. This finding is, very intuitive and makes a lot of sense. However, you also noted that perceptions of organizational hypocrisy were much more pronounced among people who experienced stronger transportation compared to people who experienced weaker transportation. Could you explain what you mean exactly by transportation and why transportation increases perceptions of organizational hypocrisy among people who were exposed to these negative testimonials?
Yeah, transportation is it's a media psychology term that people experience when they're engrossed in a narrative content, and then gets to identify with the narrator when the viewer becomes cognitively and effectively engaged with the narrated content. And the studies have shown that the people who experience transportation can experience attitude formation or attitude change that is consistent with perspective presented in the narrative. So in my study, people who watched the dissenting employee video generally experienced varying degree of transportation in that people got to sympathize with the testifying employees and their perspectives more than the others. So the hypocrisy perception in my study, it was conceptualized as people's ethical or moral judgments about a company's conduct, and arises when people witness discrepancies between what it says and what it does. So my study's findings also show that the hypocrisy perception also increases when people witnesses acts that violate norms and expectations of moral conduct. So as you noted in the question, Patrick, the effect of dissenting employee testimonials on the perception of hypocrisy were more strongly observed among people who experience higher degree of transportations. And the experience of transportation makes people to identify themselves with the narrator's perspective, and is also known to suppress critical information processing. So the stronger transportation is experienced, rather than critically and systematically process and examine the allegations of the workplace abuse to form their judgments about the company, transported individuals tend to jump to negative conclusion about the company's intent and actions.
Got it. So the more related I feel towards what they're saying, the more I can just relate with their experiences, the more transportation I'll be feeling. That's really, really interesting. So your study also revealed that the more organizational hypocrisy the participants perceived after watching the employees' dissenting testimonials, the more they downgraded the organization's reputation. Regarding reputation, could you, first tell us a little bit about how you conceptualize this concept?
There are several compatible conceptualizations of corporate or organizational reputation. And for this study, I adopted Gray and Ballmer's view of organizational reputation as value judgments by stakeholders about an organization's various attributes that develop gradually as a result of consistent performance, and that's reinforced by coordinated organizational communication and activities, and sometimes challenged by information from sources such as investments and media reports. And as we, as what seems to be the focus of the study, like employee testimonials, as sometimes reported by media organization. So reputation scholars generally consider reputation as a multi-dimensional construct, meaning that it's composed of assessments on various aspects of the organization. For this study, I used corporate reputation quotient by Formbroom and his colleagues, which include 6 dimensions of reputation. Those are leadership and vision, service and product, financial performance, emotional appeal, workplace environment, and social and environmental responsibilities. So data analysis showed that these 6 dimensions that I used could be further regrouped and categorized into morality-related reputation and ability-related reputation. So workplace, emotional appeal, social and environmental responsibilities compose the moral-related reputation, and the other 3 dimensions compose the ability-related reputation.
Got it. So overall, we're talking about a construct that has 6 dimensions, but then you're also telling us that this construct can be divided into 2 areas, right? Kind of the emotional constructs and the ability-related constructs.
That's correct.
Among these, 6 dimensions, or even these 2 big areas, right, that you were just talking about, which of them were more strongly impacted by employees' dissenting testimonials?
As expected, the workplace issues were most greatly affected by being exposed to the dissenting employee testimonials. In the more bigger picture, the morality dimensions, which combine, the emotional appeal, social and environmental responsibilities, and the workplace issues suffered greatly. And after watching the testimonials, people downgraded the morality reputation by nearly 2 points out of 7, which is a significant drop from their assessment before watching the video. And the ability dimension also decreased, even though the testimonials that people watched were nothing to do with the organizational ability dimensions. And I call this a spillover effect of a morality reputation on the ability reputation due to people's tendency to rely on morally negative information for overall character assessments.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it kind of brings me back to what I was asking you previously about the testimonials, right? I was asking you what were they about, and you told me they weren't about products and services, right? So the fact, like you're saying, there's the spillover effect is really important and really interesting as well. What I also wanted to ask you, Minjeong, has to do with one of the objectives of our video series, which is to give practitioners practical implications. So if I'm an internal communicator or a manager within an organization, what are my key takeaways from your study?
That's a very important question, because academics like myself often think in isolations and have difficulties connecting the implications of our academic research into actual practical applications that makes difference. So I've been thinking about this quite a bit. The main purpose of the study was to demonstrate negative employee communication, particularly the kind that we see in news reports, in contrast to anonymous posts on social media, and how negative employee testimonials can have a profound negative impact on organization reputation. And this is pretty intuitive and to a large extent common sense, but have not been systematically explored or verified. I was really interested in demonstrating how workplace issues could affect employees' external communication behaviors, consequently affecting public's view of organizational reputation. I think the key takeaway from the study's findings is that the internal issues and their impact on reputational damage do not occur in isolation. What is seemingly internal issue influence overall organizational reputation. So organization leaders must pay attention to all aspects of organizational operations, both internal and external. And the findings of the study shows that a short-sighted focus on profits while ignoring ethical business practices can eventually lead to overall reputational damage, which also affects investor and consumer confidence, talent acquisitions that are directly related to ability of the organization.
Got it. Yes, that all makes a lot of sense. And now finally, what should I do as a manager, let's say, to reduce the likelihood of negative employee communication behaviors?
Well, it's kind of beyond the scope of the particular study. The study, however, is a kind of extension of a larger research program that I've been interested in for the past 5 years or so. If the study's starting point was the negative employee communication, and the study demonstrated the impact of internal organizational issues on external public's view of the organization via negative employee communication, in other studies, I have examined employee communication behaviors, both positive and negative, as the end result of effective employee communication and relationship management. So research on the dynamics of negative employee communication has come with mixed results. As I pointed out in this paper, the limitation of the current theoretical framework in explaining why employees talk negatively about their companies to outsiders exists. So I would like to say that maybe voice literature can give us a little insights about how fostering a participatory and pluralistic workplace environment for employees, so that they can share their views and opinions within the organizational boundaries, can create an environment where people don't have to feel that they need to go outside to vent their frustrations and angers. Whereas, so when it comes to reducing negative employee communication, internal communication and employee communication needs to move away from top-down transmission model to more participatory model. And the goals of interactions with employees via communication should be focused on building shared understanding based on mutual needs, desires, and intentions. So more specifically, the leaders of the organization need to acknowledge employees as the legitimate partner for organizational success and invite employees to contribute to aspects of organizational operations and decision makings that impact employees. Because frustrated employees, as I mentioned earlier, who have no venue to communicate with more likely to turn, they will be more likely to turn outwards. And so there's no quick fix. There's no quick fix to reduce employee communication, but leaders need to assess the organizational culture from employees' perspectives and reflect if the organization is stifling employees' concerns and voices.
Absolutely. And like you say, there's no quick fix. It requires a lot of work. Thank you so much, Minjeong, for chatting with me today. It was such a pleasure. And to all of our viewers, thank you for joining us in this new episode of In the Workplace. Hope to see you all very soon. Bye.